Hello and welcome to Fiction Fans, a podcast where we read books and other words too. I'm Lilly.
And I'm Sarah, and we are delighted to have Ayah and Haadiya on today, co-bloggers on Her Bookish Obsession, to talk about Gilded with us.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having us. We are very excited to be here today. Talk to you guys.
Our pleasure. Before we get started talking about Gilded by Marissa Meyer, we like to start with some getting to know you questions, but I'm going to pick on Sarah first. Sarah, what's something great that happened this week?
So something good that happened is I was on dog walk and I was going in one direction and there was an old couple pushing a baby stroller going towards me. So they stepped away to the side and I said, thank you. And the old man said, welcome. And then he asked, is that how you say it? And in response to, is that the proper response to thank you? And I said, yes, it is. And then he said, thank you for the lesson in English, because he clearly wasn't a native English speaker. And it was just really sweet and wholesome. And I was
That's really nice.
You're so nice. I like you.
Oh, human connection. That's lovely.
Yeah. So that was my nice little good thing.
That's amazing. I love when you have really cute connections with people over the smallest things.
Yeah, strangers make you feel good.
Especially something like language. I started to learn sign language, and that was really lovely because now if I see somebody, and I always get embarrassed because they'll catch me staring and I'll be like, no, I'm just trying to learn. Yeah.
It's kind of like eavesdropping, but eyes dropping, that's not a thing, but that's okay.
Haadiya, what about you?
Well, I also book mail this week. I got the sequel to Wings of Ebony by JL. That's one good thing that happened this week. This week has just been school, and that's it. You get up in the morning, you go to school, you are so tired by the end of the day, you just want to eat and go to bed. That was just a little nice thing that appeared on my front porch this Wednesday.
Book mail is always exciting.
Makes every day a little bit better.
It really does.
100%. I agree.
Ayah, anything great that happened lately?
Well, I want to give away for 2 mangas, Cells at Work, and I had not realized that I entered the giveaway, so it was really surprising. Oh, look at that. I won something. Yeah, so I'm excited to get those.
Awesome.
It's for a while, actually. The anime for that manga, so.
I missed the title. What was it?
Cells at Work.
Oh, okay. I'm so out of the loop with popular manga these days. Makes me feel
ancient. I am too. It's just her and our mutual best friend Yasmin. They're obsessed. They're building a collection.
All Yasmin's fault.
Yeah. She's making us all go broke.
I feel that. My good thing is that I tried a new recipe yesterday and made some absolutely phenomenal oatmeal banana muffins.
Ooh.
Yeah. I had some bananas that were in desperate need of repurposing. And it was really, really, really very good. Not past tense, though, because I made way too many. So now they're just in my house. And our next question is beverage check. Anyone have anything delicious? I'm drinking a Queen of Tarts, which is a hibiscus tea.
I just got a nice tea today.
I made an iced coffee, caramel iced coffee.
Yum.
I never drink caffeine, though, so I'm going to be warned.
Did she hyper for weeks afterwards?
Yeah, I rarely drink coffee, but I enjoy it every once in a while. I was going to make tea, but I ran out of my leaves.
That's always very tragic.
I know, I'm so sad. They were my favorites, too, and we don't know what type of leaves they were, because my dad got them, a long time ago, and it came in, a bottle from a small store, so it wasn't
oh no, it's not. So it's not something that you can find out.
Yeah, I know. Now I'm just gonna be wishing and searching for the rest of my life.
Oh, that's tragic.
I know.
The holy grail of tea.
Sniffing every tea in Walmart.
Well, Haadiya and I are the iced tea gang today.
Yeah, that's just my go-to drink. Ayah used to come at me for having a Canada Dry every day.
All the time.
Every time I had one, I just sent her a picture. She's like, "You drinking that again?" Yes, gives me energy to live.
Sarah, how about you?
I'm drinking a hot tea. It's a black tea blend from a little local tea place or tea producer in Oakland, and it's very good.
Nice. And since this is a book podcast, anyone read anything good lately?
I guess XOXO by Axio. I think it's one of my favorites now, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. It's going up there. It's a romance, so.
Nice. I love romance stories.
Yeah, usually I don't read romance. I actually just started because of Haadiya. And then I stumbled upon this one and it just sounded so sweet. So I really enjoyed reading it. I definitely recommend.
I think you like the cover of the thing.
Oh my god, the cover. I got the hardcover. Okay, I'm going to go on a little.
With the fancy dust jacket that came out, and then the cover is also on the...
Yeah, like it's printed on the cover. So when you take off the dust jacket, the print is actually on the hardcover itself. So I thought that was really, really cool.
Like the artwork, not the XOXO. I think it's just the artwork that's on the cover.
Yeah, like the actual artwork of the book.
It's really pretty.
So that was what drew me to the book 100%. That's why I bought it.
I'm looking it up. Oh, that is quite lovely.
Yeah.
The lighting is so wistful.
Right? It's so cute. The whole story was cute too. But like quite like sickeningly sweet. So maybe not for everybody. But really liked it.
I took a shot at some other book talk recommendations that didn't let down. Like I started reading The Song of Achilles. That's just not my favorite. I know lots of people like it. No hate to them. It's just not for me. But I loved the Inheritance Games duology as of now, recently. And started reading The Daughter of the Pirate King duology. So I'm just waiting for the second audiobook to come through from our library.
Nice. I haven't heard of that last one, but I do love pirates, so it's piqued my interest.
It's really good. It's like enemies to lovers romance, but the main character is so witty, and the banter and everything is amazing.
Awesome.
I read that one a while ago, but I still remember enjoying it, but I don't remember much about the book itself.
Yeah, the characters are sarcastic, and like the main character reminded me of Ayah. I'm like, you need to read this book. It's so you.
Very cool. Sarah, you have anything for us?
I read Scales and Sensibility by Stephanie Burgess.
Is that one of those redoing Jane Austen but with monsters?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's been a while since I've read Sense and Sensibility, so I don't know if it's like strictly speaking, a reimagining, but it's certainly like a Regency romance with dragons. It was fun. There's one main plot point that gave me a lot of anxiety, and that kind of affected my enjoyment of the book. But that's a personal problem. That's not like a book problem. That's just a me thing.
I have an obsession with dragons. Any book with a dragon, instantly on my TBR.
The dragons in this were really good.
Oh yeah? Oh my god, now I need to read it.
Yeah.
The Priory of the Orange Tree. I bought that because there's a dragon in it, and I never got around to reading it.
We were supposed to buddy read that like last November or something. I still haven't got a copy yet.
Yeah,
I've heard really good things about it, but I haven't read it either.
It's so long. I'm probably gonna take the entirety of June to read it.
Yeah, it is chonky.
800 pages, and I was like,
that's too long.
so many. I don't know if I can do this.
I was gonna try with the ebook, but it was just gonna like. I would have to need glasses like right away. 800 pages on ebook would have been too much.
Mm-hmm. Well, as we mentioned earlier, we are here today to discuss Gilded by Marissa Meyer. This book came out in November, I think, fairly recently. And I know she has a couple of other novels that are similar fairy tale retellings, but I'm not familiar with her work. Have you guys read some of her other stuff, or is this a first for you as well?
No, I was actually gifted her book series, the Lunar Chronicles. My birthday.
Is that the Cinderella one?
Yeah, so each book goes over a different fairy tale, and it's retelling fairy tales. So I think the first one was Cinderella. A couple of them, one was Rapunzel, one was Little Red Riding Hood, one was Snow White as well. So there was different retellings, and then each book kind of focused on a different character, but in the same universe.
Nice.
And then they all connect.
And so they eventually met up at the ending.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Like the last book, like towards the middle of the series, they met up with 3 characters, and then towards the end, they were all friends and went their separate ways.
Yeah, I think, honestly, that's like one of the best books I've read before. Like, best retellings. I don't usually enjoy retellings.
Yeah.
That's cool. I love when stories can sort of weave themselves together like that, especially if you aren't expecting it. It's always like extra neat.
Ayah actually got me into reading Marissa Meyer. We had a book club thing at school, which is like books and breakfast. So you come to school at like 7 o'clock, I think, 8 o'clock in the morning, and you'd have croissants and stuff, and then you'd have this book club. So Ayah was sat at our table one day, and she brought up Cinder, and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Mm-hmm. And I met her a couple months before, but we never actually talked. And then we talked about the book, and she got me to read the entire series. It's one of my favorites now, but I haven't read the Renegades by Marissa Meyer. She has another trilogy, I think it is.
Is Renegades unrelated to the Lunar Chronicles?
Yeah, that's completely a different series, but it's another Marissa Meyer.
Yeah, but I've heard controversy over that. Some people hate it, and then some people love it. So I don't know if I'd enjoy it.
Is it also like a retelling, a fairy tale retelling, or is it completely...
I think it's more sci-fi.
Interesting.
Than fantasy.
I mean, her Lunar Chronicles were sci-fi retellings, so I thought that was super cool because I had never read a retelling done like that, and I was like, this is actually interesting.
It was not like the whole romance plot, like cliched stuff. It was like, these main characters are brave people. They have character. They're just like, oh, he's so cute, prince, marry, kiss, whatever. It was very interesting.
Yeah. Oh my god. And the romances were complicated as well. It was really good.
I think Scarlet's one of my favorites. I actually got a Scarlet candle from Possum Wicks on Instagram from a giveaway. It smells like lemon cake because her grandmother in the book made lemon cake for them all. And it just smells so good. And Scarlet's one of my favorite characters.
You're making me hungry. Stop.
I know, right?
Haadiya, I think it's interesting, though, that you mentioned darker, more complicated storylines in these retellings. I wonder if part of that is how Disney has sort of affected the general unconsciousness regarding fairy tales, right? They've made everything so
like happy,
light and happy and simple. But then when you think about the originals, they're pretty intense.
For dark.
Marissa Meyer just puts a twist on everything. It's amazing what she does with her stories because you're not expecting them to be a couple in the end because they're so different. They're different people. She's like a girl from, obviously it's kind of cliche because she's a girl from the village, he's the prince. They're gonna fall in love because that's the two point of views that you get in the book, but you don't expect it to happen the way it does.
Yeah, no.
That's the best kind of twist, where you know it's coming, but you don't know how it possibly could.
I definitely agree.
Like, it's so unlikely, but it still happens.
100%. No, I really liked the way that she does it. She did it in such a way where it was interesting. I've read other retellings where I get bored because I know the story already. It's just going to end up the same way. So then you're like, you change the characters, sure, but it's the same story in the end. But Marissa Meyer did it completely differently. She would change it, but still keep the main concepts of the fairy tale whilst changing the way that they happen. So it was really, really nice.
They're also like people of color, I think, in Cinder. They're not just a white cast of characters.
Yeah.
I think Cinder is a Shanghai, is it?
I think it is placed in Shanghai, but in a futuristic.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was a futuristic.
It's the new Beijing. Yeah. So there are people of color in the books as well. It's not just like a whole white cast of everybody's just white.
That is the caveat of adapting Northern European myths. Everyone's Northern European.
I think the other one was, but I guess that doesn't count as a retelling because it's the original story in 1000 Arabian Nights, Aladdin, because it's very different from the movie that Disney produces, which that's another thing altogether. But
right.
I can say that.
I was asking Ayah about the Arabian Nights retelling she was talking about. Was that a Marissa Meyer thing?
No, it wasn't. It's the original 1000 Arabian Nights. I haven't read all of them, but like being Arab myself, they're kind of stories that I've heard since I was a child. So like if you bring them up, some of the stories I have heard, some of them I wouldn't have heard. Aladdin is one of the ones that like I know more because Disney has done it. So I've heard about it since I was a kid. And then I've heard like the real story, which is pretty similar, just like a little bit of differences between them. But yeah.
Yeah, so every retelling is gonna have to have a twist. You can't just tell the same story and not twist it. Pass it through so many people. And
yeah, you had mentioned earlier that you don't usually read or tend to like fairy tale retellings.
Yeah, I guess they're just not my cup of tea. I like fantasy novels. I do.
Mhm.
I prefer when it's more unique and its own thing. I feel like it gives me a better sense of the author themselves because I'm hearing the way that they would tell a story instead of just repeating something in their own narrative. So I
Mhm.
really like new stories, unique stories. Sometimes I like stories with similar concepts, but with different ways of carrying them out, which is what Marissa Meyer did. So that's why I enjoyed them. But usually, fairy tale retellings, the experience I've had with them is the same story retold the same way, just with
Mhm.
different characters. And I don't like that.
You ever read any Naomi Novik
No.
and her retellings? Because I feel like that's one of the things I enjoyed about Spinning Silver, for example, which is also a Rumpelstiltskin. I kind of hesitate to call it a retelling. I think it's more
Inspired.
inspired by, because it goes in a very different direction. And it's some of the like beats are the same, but it's very much less. Well, I guess there is magic in it too, but it goes in a different direction. And so you can see where she gets the inspiration from, but you don't know where the story's going because she takes it in a different direction from the
Yeah.
fairy tale.
I've never read that, but maybe that would be a good thing to try. I actually did. I was gifted a set of other retellings. I forgot their name, but they're retellings of like characters from the villain's point of view of the story.
Oh,
So
fun.
it would be like Aladdin, for example, but from Jafar's kind of point of view. So he's now the good guy kind of thing.
Mhm.
So I thought that was interesting because it's less of a retelling and more of like a difference of opinion, of
Mhm.
perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I always like that because I always think if you're reading something from one person's perspective, you're not getting the whole story at all.
I think what you mentioned was the Twisted Tales series by Liz Braswell. I
Yeah,
think I have the Rapunzel one on ebook. I've started that.
I got 50 first three. So I think that's the Aladdin one, like I mentioned, and Beauty and the Beast, and I think Maleficent.
I'm gonna have to take those off you.
What about you, Hadia? Do you read a lot of fairy tale retellings, or are you like that genre?
Not really. Marissa Meyer is really the only time I actually read a retelling that I was aware of. I think I read a Dark Rapunzel retelling. It's not PG at all. I just had to read it for a I had to read it for a book tour. It was interesting. The characters were kind of annoying though, so I won't mention it now, but I'll send you guys the name later if you guys want to check it out.
Yeah. I do have to plug Ella Enchanted, which was the retelling near and dear to my heart from my youth. I don't know. I know they made that movie that was nothing like the book at all, but the book is very good.
Nothing like the book. I've seen the movie, I'm pretty sure, when I was younger, but I've never read the book. I didn't even know it was a book, actually.
I would definitely recommend the book.
It's not that long. You could crank it out in an afternoon, and it's super fun.
Yeah, I'll definitely take that into account.
Definitely take a look at the book then. I don't think I've seen the movie, but I'll have to take a look at the book first.
I mean, I love Anne Hathaway, so definitely watch the movie. It's fun, but
no, I thought that Drew Barrymore was in it and not Anne Hathaway.
It's definitely our girl Anne.
Oh, fine.
That's fine. You can look it up and prove that I'm right.
No, I believe you. No, you're right. Yeah, it is Anne Hathaway.
I've told this story once before, I think, but that's actually the only book I've ever stolen. I borrowed it from my school library and decided that no one else would love it as much as me, and so it deserved to be mine. Not my proudest moment, but that's how much I liked the book.
I feel like that's something our friend Yasmin would do. Like if a book just came out and it's at the library, not at any, and sold out at stores, she'd just take it from the library and be like, "Oh, I lost it. I can't find it anywhere."
I can see her doing that,
but just keeps it.
I do not recommend that as a method for book acquisition, but we're allowed to make mistakes. It's okay. Now, Sarah, you brought up in our notes the resurgence of retellings, both of fairy tales and myths, which I do think is an interesting... I don't know if we can say that's recent. Maybe we've just been noticing it more.
I mean, I really don't know if it's recent either, because for a long time I wasn't tuned into like what was going on in the book world.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this big gap. But it feels to me like there's a lot more retellings, both of like Greek mythology and other mythologies, and fairy tales with Marissa Meyer and like Naomi Novik and other authors that I just don't remember seeing as much when I was younger. Like obviously there was Ella Enchanted, but I am kind of struggling to think of another fairy tale retelling that I read when I was a kid.
I think it's definitely more common.
Yeah.
Definitely. Because I remember when I was younger, I read the Rick Riordan books and he kept
Mhm.
coming out with them. So there's still more. I think I've only missed out on his latest series because I do really enjoy his books.
And that's the Percy Jackson series?
Yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't necessarily call that a retelling so much as like taking Greek mythology and using it in your like
And retelling it?
no, but he's not retelling it.
That's true. He's building on it, right? Because it's modern.
Yeah, he's using it as kind of a basis, but he's not actually retelling any of the myths, to my understanding anyway. I haven't read a bunch of them.
I think in the second one, in the Sea of Monsters, he does take Percy Jackson, which is the main character, but he puts him in the position of Jason and the Golden Fleece. I think it's don't quote me on that, but so essentially Percy is just playing the part of Jason when he was going after the Golden Fleece.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same myth, but instead it's a different character. So it carries out a little differently. But some of the myths that he uses were the same, just in a different setting, in like a more futuristic new place instead of like a long time ago.
Yeah.
Mhm.
New aspects of things that the villains can use and all of that.
I would say that counts.
Yeah, so maybe I'm wrong about that.
Plus, I think heavily inspired by is the similar spirit, at least, even
Yeah,
if
that's
retelling
true.
isn't the perfect definition.
Yeah, I've seen more of the Greek mythology retellings rather than fairy tale retellings, like the Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Her books are all retellings of Greek myths.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So I've read those. Not a big fan, but I heard they were good. I've read them. Not for me.
And I feel like we also nowadays are getting a little bit more diverse in our retellings. Like Su Lin Tan just came out with Daughter of the Moon Goddess, which is a Chinese legend inspired retelling. And so I feel like that's like we're starting to see it's the same kind of concept, but much more diverse, which is great.
Right, instead of getting the same 3 Greek myths over
Yeah.
and over again. Or Shakespeare retellings, also very
Mhm.
popular. That being said, I love R+J, so no one speak against it.
See the copy this week. That's so pretty.
Oh yeah, that cover is just gorgeous.
Haven't read it yet, but
I'm really excited to read that book because, like you said, it's a Chinese legend and it's not a legend that I've heard before. So then when I read the retelling, it's not as...
yeah, something different. Also, like The Keeper of Night, which I gave you.
Oh yeah, and you annotated it.
That's Kylie Yamashiro, I think, right? That just came out last year.
Kylie the Baby.
Yeah.
That was in October, I think. Really excited for you to read that.
I haven't gotten around to reading it.
I annotated my arc and gifted it to Ayah for her birthday because she's a sucker for annotations. She just loves them.
That's the sweetest present I've ever heard of. That's incredible.
One of my favorite gifts for my birthday, actually.
And it has dragons. And she'll love the villain because she's a sucker for villains as well. No idea why. She likes them morally gray.
You and me both, Ayah.
I was going to say, why does that sound familiar? I have to admit, I kind of had that experience with Gilded, the mythology you're not familiar with, because I know basically nothing about Northern European Germanic myths and stories and legends. I know Snow White, and I know the story of Rumpelstiltskin, but a lot of the monsters and ghosts and things mentioned in this book were completely new to me. So that was really fun. I kept Googling things like, what is a Nachtcrypt, or however you pronounce it.
That was one of the things that I really liked about Gilded, actually, was the monsters felt appropriate to the setting. Like it felt like there was a lot of depth there.
Mm-hmm.
And interesting things that we don't see very often.
I'm also not very familiar even with the myth of Rumpelstiltskin. Like, I know some of the names, some of the monsters that they used, but I've never connected that Rumpelstiltskin was part of that world.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it was more of a Western myth. But then Marissa really went into depth of how it's a Germanic mythology, and it went into that sort of area, which I had never experienced before. So I really enjoyed that.
And all her books are set like in a different place too, so it's not all in America or all in China or somewhere. It's everywhere. Some are set in space.
Her descriptions of forests were just so creepy and unsettling. I loved it. I am a horror fan. We were talking earlier about how not all of us like horror the same amount. I wish there was more in the haunted castle, because we do get a haunted castle, and I just wanted to live there the whole time.
Yeah, I feel like this would be greatly adapted as a comic book. Like this, the drawing, everything would be so spooky. I think it's described as a dark fantasy retelling. No, maybe, but that would be an accurate description because it is quite dark.
And I suspect that you'll get more of that haunted castle in book 2.
We're really hoping.
This is the first book in a duology.
Well, we mentioned that this is a retelling of the Rumpelstiltskin myth. It sounds like the answer is probably no. No one has read any other Rumpelstiltskin retellings except for Sarah, the one you had mentioned. Spinning
Silver, yeah, which, again, is not so much a retelling as inspired by.
We've decided that counts, though.
I'm not saying it doesn't count. I'm just saying that it's, if you go into it expecting it to be like exactly the same as the fairy tale, you're going to be disappointed because it's not.
Well, I have seen the Muppet reimagining of Rumpelstiltskin, which I have decided also counts.
I wasn't aware that there was a Muppet retelling of Rumpelstiltskin.
Oh, there is.
I don't know why I'm surprised.
I think there's a TV show called Once Upon a Time that I watched like 2 or 3 years ago, and that has Rumpelstiltskin in it, but it's very different and not at all like Gilded. Very different storyline.
My understanding is that Once Upon a Time sort of takes all of the fairy tale characters and then throws them into a new story. Am I correct?
A very dark story.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. It's more like all the fairy tale characters are now in a human city, and they all think that they're human and not fairy tale characters. And then they slowly unravel who they are.
Yeah, I think I've seen mostly clips of that. I was Googling something, I don't even know what, but I've seen clips of the show. I added it to my watch list. It's going to be a long summer of lots of stuff.
And it's a pretty long series, isn't it? The show?
I think it's like 4 seasons?
I think there's like 7, and I have not been keeping up with it. I was keeping up with it with a couple of friends of mine a couple years ago, and then we just all stopped watching it.
Well, before we move on to our spoilery conversation, Haadiya and Ayah, why should someone read this book?
Haadiya, you want to go first?
I think you should go first.
I think that if you really enjoy retellings that are told in a new, maybe a little scary way, then you should definitely give this book a look. You know, you might really enjoy it. Wasn't my favorite book, but that's because I didn't really like this style of writing. It was very different from her sci-fi novels, which is what I was expecting. So this is still very much fantasy. It's very good in the way that she makes the world very realistic. Her descriptions are very well written. So if you enjoy a more horror fantasy vibe, then I think you'd really enjoy this book.
Also, going on what Ayah said, this book is darker than Marissa's other series, which was kind of lighter, but it still had the elements that didn't make it all cheery and bubbly and it just made it different from what you expect from fairy tales. So this is really good. It was fast-paced after the first 100 pages or so. The romance was there. The Earl King was spot on, like Darkling energy. So I love that. And like it's just scary and thrilling and everything that Marissa Meyer has built up. It's like everything that she had in her other books is just like smashed into one. It's just great.
To avoid spoilers for Gilded, skip to 5246.
So, Haadiya, you say that the Earl King has some Darkling energy. And I have to admit, I was a little disappointed that that's not where the romance is going.
I was also kind of sad that she didn't like fall in love with the Darkling towards the end. It was Gild actually that she like, and they met what, like 3 times? She's like, oh my god, I'm so pretty, I'm in love with you.
It was I feel like Serilda's relationship with Gild was a little bit insta-love. You know, they meet a handful of times and then suddenly she's pregnant with his child.
He was admittedly quite charming though. Like I was like, the description alone, like, oh my god, he's cute. I like him.
I think there is something to be said for, trauma bonding. They're both in this horrible situation with no one to rely on but each other. And she has never really experienced affection from a love interest before. So it's not completely off the wall that she would latch onto him, but
I understand like why it happens and why she feels such a like intensity of emotion for him, but as a reader, that's just not my jam.
Yeah.
Yeah, the insta-love is not something I gravitate towards.
Sarah, you texted me that you were disappointed that they didn't end up together. And I was like, what do you mean she doesn't end up with the Earl King?
Yeah.
How is that not where this book was going?
I didn't realize that you hadn't like gotten to that point yet. And I felt a little bit bad for spoiling that.
At the beginning, I thought she was going to end up with Earl King, but later on, I was realizing where it was going. So I knew she would end up with Gild. Was I happy about it? Definitely not.
Yeah.
Not happy with it. I was not happy with how fast it was. I'm very much slow burn and angst are definitely up there as much better than insta-love, but it was very quick. And then she was pregnant and I was like, already? Wow.
Yeah, that was my feelings exactly.
And the first 200 pages were just descriptions of things and where she lived and the guys in the village and how she never got love from them. I didn't love the first 200 pages, but after that, when it picked up, I was, yes. We got the audiobook, actually, an arc of the audiobook. So when we got the audiobook, I started over that 200 pages because I wasn't actually paying attention because I was bored.
Like I said, I loved the creepy haunted castle. There was definitely too much time spent in the normal world for me. Give me shrub grandmother. Give me like creepy toad people. That was great.
Yeah, I do think that the book could have been condensed a little bit without losing any of the storyline or creepiness.
Yeah, no, like the first 200 pages, I feel like could have been condensed a lot more. Also, I read it digitally, so maybe my idea of 200 pages is a little different from your idea of 200 pages. But that first little bit, I think, could have been like a couple of chapters instead of so many. Mm-hmm. And it kind of reminded me of my experience with Bone Shard Daughter, which was like pretty slow in the beginning, but then picked up once you understood the world and you're like, oh, this is actually interesting. Mm-hmm. So you just kind of have to wade through the beginning and just get to the point.
So I've been experiencing Bader-Meinhof. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced. The Bader-Meinhof phenomenon, which is when after you learn about something, you suddenly start seeing it everywhere. I don't know if you've ever experienced that.
Yeah.
But I am going through that with The Wild Hunt. I started playing The Witcher 3 like a year ago, way too long ago. And The Wild Hunt that's the main bad guy. The main villain in The Witcher. It's introduced in the TV show as well, but it's more in the video game. And now it's also in this book. And I was like, I know that. I know what that is now.
No, The Wild Hunt appears multiple times in like Fae novels. I've seen it.
Yeah, because it's a big thing of like Fae mythology, right?
Yeah, but I never made a connection until this book. I was like, oh, this is Germanic? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. I did not know that. So yeah.
And it does also have a really similar mythology setting as Gilded, right? From that same sort of Europe region. A lot of monsters that I wasn't familiar with before. So it is always fun experiencing these new creatures, reading about them or slaughtering them in a video game.
Yeah.
Well, as we mentioned a little bit, Gilded is the first book in a duology, and the sequel I have no idea when the sequel is coming out. sometime in the future.
There will be a sequel at some point.
Yeah, the cover was a couple of days ago. It's really, really, really pretty. Oh, it's out November 8th.
2022?
Yep, later this year.
Oh, wow.
I'm so excited for that. We're probably going to get advanced copies too, so just like...
You don't even have to wait that long. That's awesome.
HarperCollins Canada has been kind to us.
I was wondering if we had any predictions or wishes that maybe we don't think would happen, but it would be cool if they did.
I want the Earl King to be redeemed. It's not going to happen. I want him to be redeemed and for her to end up with him.
Maybe it will turn into a fusion of Beauty and the Beast, and she will thaw his icy heart. And then all of the ghosts.
Yeah, but he's also like trying to get his lover back from the dead or something, right?
Yeah,
right now he is.
But maybe he will come to realize that Serilda is better than a dead lover.
Imagine if he gets the dead lover back and then Gild just pops out of nowhere and slices her head off again. That would be cool, in my opinion. If they kill her and then somebody kills Gild, and then they all end up dead in the end, and the castle turns from horror-ish back to its original, like, happy state. I don't know. It's just a theory.
That would be cool.
That would be really dark, though, with everyone dead at the end.
But, like, if everybody dies, and then the slaves he had in the castle, like, everybody he's, like, cursed to stay in the castle forever, is released, like, all the ghosts and stuff back to life, but, like, as better people. And the castle turns from a dark, haunted place. It just, like magically turns into, like, a forest, a garden, like, a happy place. And the villagers can go there and everything. I'm all for a happy ending in this one, with the Earl King dead.
I do suspect they'll vanquish the Earl King at the end.
I think so. I think that Serilda and Gild are going to overcome the curse somehow.
Yeah.
And live happily ever after.
Or the baby's gonna be born and then they're gonna, like, the child's gonna grow, like, extra fast, become a king of somewhere and kill them all.
Maybe it carries on to the child, saves them all somehow. Maybe that's what happened.
Child born of golden hair because Gild's blood or whatever. Of genes, whatever genes that kid has. Magical genes.
Who even knows?
It's like a whole Rapunzel thing goes on.
It actually would be really interesting to see if Gild's ability to spin straw into gold
is inherited.
Passes down to the kid.
Theoretically, then.
Or the kid has her eyes.
Serilda's, powers would pass down as well.
Yeah.
Her storytelling, story spinning, lying power. I really liked that because I thought it was interesting. I've never really seen that as a power. And I was like, that's actually pretty cool.
I really loved the twist when we found out she hasn't been lying. She's been inspired to tell these stories that ended up being true. I didn't see that coming, right? I thought she was just a storyteller, but it turns out her divine inspiration was in fact true all along.
The mean teacher who she always kept calling a witch was actually a witch.
Yeah.
The boy who went to the castle to find his sister dead was actually Gild.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that she took so long to figure that out, though, kind of annoyed me.
Yeah.
Her whole relationship with Gild annoyed me, to be honest.
It was just too quick to happen. The kiss and everything was just... Y'all gotta be friends first. No, hi, how are you?
They'd known each other for like 3 days.
3 days.
Mm-hmm.
Romeo and Juliet have nothing on them. At least they knew each other for 5 days.
Yeah, just so fast and so quick. She spent more time with the Earl King than she did with Gild.
I think that's part of why, I was so much more invested in their relationship and hoping that it would go that way, even though it was obvious that it wasn't. But she's, like you say, she spends so much more time with him, and it feels like there's a lot more room to have something develop there.
We also see them interact more.
Yeah.
Most of the scenes where Serilda and Gild are together are just Serilda telling a story. They don't even spend most of the time interacting.
Yeah.
Or him just being sad and her being like, oh no, what happened? Tell me the story.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Earl King, I feel like if she's pregnant with the kid now, the Earl King's gonna treat her better. He's gonna lock her up or something, give her a room in the castle, treat her well, and then she's gonna start being nicer to him. because she doesn't feel so imprisoned. If that's a love line, I would go for it. I'd just be happy if they end up together and Gild, Gild stabs somebody in the back because, and she realized that he's not the one trapped. He's there for a reason. Like, the Earl King did that for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a good twist.
I think we're going to see something with that arrow, right? The Earl King gave her an arrow, a gold-tipped arrow, which is what he used to trap Gild and Serilda at different times. And so that arrow is going to come back, that he gifted her of his own free will. There's going to be some magic going on there. I don't know what yet, but something.
I think I'm more curious how it's going to work now that there's a kid. Usually when there's a pregnancy trope, it's like at the end of the series.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't really be fighting when there's a baby in your house, crying for somebody to take care of them. So kind of curious how that works out. Like Haadiya said, maybe it's like one of those, the child grows up really quickly because of magic or something.
It'll also be interesting to see how being cursed affects the pregnancy, right? Because she was pregnant before she became chained to the castle.
Well,
Yeah.
I think it's implied that her body is still living without her, right? It's just an empty shell.
But
She saw herself float out of the body.
that's true.
So I assume her physical body is the one going through pregnancy, whereas her spirit self can just run around doing all the adventures she wants, which that would be pretty cool. Could science get on that?
but would that separation have an effect
I don't know.
on the pregnancy? Like what happens, what happens to the kid? I don't know.
We'll find out.
Or maybe like the kid's born and then the Earl King can't touch the child because it's magical. The Earl King can't even be in the same room because it pains him in some way.
Maybe that's how Gilded becomes the bad guy, or Gild becomes the bad guy. He kidnaps the baby because it was promised to him. And then she gets mad at him for that. And then she and the Earl King have to team up to get the baby back. And then they fall in love.
Yeah. Happily ever after. Yeah, because the pregnancy trope, when that happens, is usually like scene, then 2 pages, story ends off, and then oh no, she's pregnant, and then you go to the epilogue. There's like they just had the baby, just got a new house, blah blah blah, happily ever after. All is well in the kingdom. I feel like Gilded has a really strong like it feels kind of like Heartless by Marissa Meyer, which is another audiobook I got recently. That was also really great. The love interest in that was top tier. I loved him. It wasn't insta-love, it was witty, it was not insta-love. I just have to point that out. I think I rated it 4 stars. Highly recommend.
I think I might be a little biased, but I think the sci-fi ones are definitely my favorites out of all of the retellings that she's written. I think they were just very different from the other ones like Heartless and Gilded. They're a little more fantasy, less sci-fi, and I really liked the sci-fi feel. I don't actually generally like sci-fi. I usually go for fantasy, but in the case of retellings, I think it just adds a different aspect to a story that's already been told.
Well, like you mentioned earlier, making a fairy tale sci-fi is such a different angle on the story that we're familiar with. I can totally see how that would feel so different and be really appealing in that way.
I mentioned that I hadn't read any retellings before, and somehow forgot my favorite series ever, The School for Good and Evil, which is just everything retelling in one. It's amazing, and I love it, and I highly, highly recommend it. The author is amazing. He just came out with like 7 or 12 different stories in one book called Beast and Beauty.
Ooh.
It was so good. His writing is amazing.
I actually bought Beasts and Beauty as a gift to myself because one of my friends had taken me to Indigo, and I had told myself that I'm not going to buy anything. I would never do that. And then I saw it and I was like, maybe I can just buy a couple of books today.
I don't think it's possible to go to a bookstore and not buy anything.
Oh, there's a movie coming out soon. The School for Good and Evil movie. It's going to be on Netflix. I think in November.
Nice. I do have one last question. It's not a long discussion one, but do we think that the sequel is going to pick up right where this book left off, or do we think there's going to be a time skip?
That's a good question.
I feel like it's going to be pretty soon because we're going to see her adjusting to life in the castle.
I think so too. Like, I think that normally if a book ended with this kind of pregnancy announcement, I would think there was going to be a time skip and we'd come to the next book right when the baby was being born. But because she's now stuck in the castle, I think there's going to be like, you have to show her coming to terms with that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it's going to pick up pretty immediately where it left off.
I agree. I would usually think when a book ends in such a way, obviously with a pregnancy, you would want to see the kid being born and being there in the next book, kind of how it goes. But with this ending, it doesn't really seem like they're going to skip time and then go like 9 months into the future, because then you're really seeing her adjusting to her new life. So
I kind of feel like in the second book, the baby is not going to be born until the very end.
And that will be the big climactic.
Yeah, or like that'll be the epilogue,
Teasing for a sequel, a third sequel. Third book, not sequel, because that's the second book. Or maybe the prologue for the second book is going to be from the Earl King's point of view, like, oh no, I just shot her and now she's chained to the castle, blah, 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 we have a baby to deal with. And then the first chapter is going to be all her adjusting, more of her adjusting, her being mad at Gild for something, Gild coming out with his story of what actually happened, because I hope he has a dark past.
And then darker than killing Perchta? It's a little dark.
No,
no, not dark enough.
The baby's going to probably take longer than 9 months to be born because it's a magical baby and all.
Oh, there's
maybe there's going to be complications and she absorbs the baby.
Who knows what could happen? Maybe the gods take the baby back. You can't have one baby with 2 god blessings. Maybe that's too many and they just scoop it up.
I do wonder if the gods will come into this more.
I mean, we've sort of seen Velos, the god of death, a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. Teeny bit.
A little bit.
He seemed to know something.
And the god who gave her father the blessing or curse, rather, would probably, the Earl King's still looking for him. So, or her, I don't know. Them. So, I don't know if it'll come into play where the Earl King still wants the wish of having his beloved back in the story.
Was it just the god of fate that grants wishes, or was it any god that you caught could grant a wish? I wasn't clear on that in the book.
I think it was one god that was out on that specific night.
Okay. The god
wish. Like, if you save this god, you get the wish.
Gotcha. Because I could definitely see the Earl King using his golden rope to catch the god of death just because he's mad at them for taking his lover away.
Yeah, I could see that.
I wonder if there's going to be any, like, coming back from the dead with his lover. Like, what if she just shows up? She's like, I'm alive again. I don't know how.
I wasn't really dead all along. I was just playing a big prank on you. Wait. Hi.
That would be a big prank.
Or maybe that's how they defeat him. Like, Serilda manages to maybe spin a story that, like, makes it true or something, using her powers to force something to be true, where she can, like, transform herself into the image of his lover to trick him. Maybe that's how it'll end.
Or he wants his lover back so bad and she comes back to life, but she's not what he expected. So he, like, in a fit of rage, kills everybody because she doesn't come back the same way. I just want everybody to die. I'm sorry.
Or maybe the only way they can be together is if the Earl King willingly goes to the land of death. And it's a very, like, sweet kind of romantic ending. Not with Serilda, but he chooses to go there so he can be with her again.
Or the only way he can get her back is if he releases all the ghosts and prisoners that he's cursed.
Like a hostage situation.
Yeah, and anybody he's killed is like brought back to life. Her dad and all would come back and her mom would also be back.
I do wonder, do you guys think her mom is really a ghost in the castle? Or do you think she's just dead?
I think she's a ghost.
I think she is. I think she's a ghost.
That would be a great plot point in the book, yeah. If she just shows up like, Serilda, my love, is that you?
I think she's a ghost, and that part of it is going to be like maybe she doesn't remember Serilda because she's been so consumed by the wild hunt, but she is going to end up giving aid to Serilda in getting away from the Earl King.
And then later on, when Serilda is safe, she'll be like, she looked familiar. Is she my mother? And then she'll go back like, are you my mom? And then saves her. Lots of potential.
That maybe it turns out that, like, you know how they were always like, when the hunt calls, you're going because that's like your deepest desire, but you don't really want to go, like logically. But maybe it turns out that her mom willingly left. So it's like a really big heartbreak for her, is that when she meets her mom's like, I never wanted to settle down and have kids, and this is what I wanted. I needed to leave, like willingly. Thinking about it, she left on purpose instead of being enraptured by the hunt. Maybe that's what happens.
Maybe she's been living in Adelheid, the surrounding city, this whole time, and she just started a new life.
Plot twist.
Maybe Serilda doesn't fall in love with the Guild or the Earl King. Maybe she joins the hunt and just gives Guild the baby, and the Earl King gets his wife, and like her and her mom get to rekindle their love for each other.
Maybe they're the new leaders of the hunt, and they still swindle people into joining them, but they don't kill them in the process. It's just like a vacation. And it's the new friendlier hunt.
Yeah. Like a lighter one now than, oh, if you join, we'll kill you. Like, that's fun, I guess.
It's more like a little bit embarrassing when you wander back the next day.
Oh, they just party all night. Like a kind of Cruel Prince kind of vibe, and they go back the next day all woozy. No idea what's happening. I'm really excited about the hotel manager and her daughter. Is it a hotel or a restaurant? The lady in Adelheid was her daughter, and
Both?
the librarian.
Yeah. The mayor. She was also the mayor.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how that plays out. Their romance.
Yeah, that was cute.
That was
very cute.
I liked that one. And then I liked her daughter too, the mayor's daughter, who was like spreading stories and stuff about Serilda. I liked that because I was like, that kind of reminded me of Serilda when she was younger, always telling stories. So it was like they have something that they like connect on.
Maybe that's why they gravitate towards each other. They like each other so much.
Yeah.
They're so similar.
Both mischievous storytellers.
Thank you both so much for coming on to talk about Gilded with us. Before you go, can you tell us a little bit about the book blog that you do and where you guys can be found on the internet?
So me and Haadiya were co-bloggers, and essentially that means I do more of the behind-the-scenes stuff because I don't really like being the center of things. I get too anxious about that. So I kind of organize things. Sometimes I'll set up some posts and review some books, but I don't do as many book tours as she would. I just kind of set up the posts and schedule them and all of that. And you can find us on Twitter and Instagram and on our blog, Her Bookish Obsession. On Twitter, it's Her Bookish. And then I have a separate account, and it's Ayah_reads.
That's also linked in the Her Bookish Obsession Twitter account, which is what I manage. So it's in the little bio thing.
And we'll link to all of these in the description for the episode as well.
Yeah. And our About page on the blog has all our emails, all our contact information, a little bit about us, a little bit more about us. That has to be updated as well. We set that up over a year ago, so we're going to have that updated soon. All our information is there, Goodreads links, Amazon wishlist. Yeah, I started reviewing books, and then I met Ayah. We connected right away, go to the same school and everything. So she has been behind the scenes helping me stay organized, sane and organized, because I could not do it all without her help.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both so much for joining us today. It's been such a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Fiction Fans.
Come disagree with us. We're on Twitter and Instagram at fictionfanspod. You can also email us at fictionfanspod@gmail.com.
If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review on Apple Podcasts and follow us wherever your podcasts live.
Thanks again for listening, and may your villains always be defeated. Bye!
Bye!